Sometimes many games fade into oblivion, or they become ephemeral particles that for some reason are even lost in the subconscious. That's my case with this 2008 video game, Prince of Persia. A reboot of a saga that, before this title, had a very successful and revered trilogy. Those games are classics in every sense. I'm talking about Prince of Persia, The Sands of Time, launched in 2003, Prince of Persia, Warrior Within, launched in 2004, and finishing the trilogy is Prince of Persia, The Two Thrones, in 2005. Those games are amazing. For some reason, Ubisoft, the developer of this 2008 Prince of Persia, saw the need to take a new canvas and create a different world, story and theme for the anonymous prince, protagonist of this long-running and acclaimed video game franchise. The only thing that the 2008 Prince of Persia borrows from the previous trilogy is the gameplay genre, which is an action-adventure platformer with an excellent execution and more polished than the prior games. In my own odyssey of playing most of the Prince of Persia video games, I didn't remember this 2008 reboot very well. My recollections are limited to seeing a few reviews about it, and above all, I remember my astonishment at the radically different design compared to the previous games. I also remember seeing a promotional trailer for this Prince of Persia game, where I was captivated by the synergy between the visuals mixed with the melancholic song embraced by a piano melody and a heavenly voice. The song in question was Breathe Me, performed by Sia. One of the best game trailers I have witnessed, that's for sure. Ubisoft took a big risk at the time by changing the tone and style of the previous games, which unfortunately, I'm sorry, this word is so difficult, didn't work out in terms of sales and popularity. In those years, cel-shaded graphics which emulated hand-drawn animation were all the rage. Games like Zelda, The Wind Waker, Okami, and Beautiful Joe, among others, are examples of this technique. This Prince of Persia used cel shading to give the adventure a watercolor-like feel, which for me, it's a beauty even 16 years after its release. Furthermore, the game departed from the trilogy that revolved around the Sands of Time and gameplay mechanic of slowing down and rewinding time. Likewise, the prince wasn't the same as in the previous trilogy, since the story of the 2008 game belonged to a different universe. This may have been an element that didn't quite resonate with fans of older games. But what did continue, albeit with some tweaks, was the smooth, buttery gameplay of its parkour, jumping, running, climbing the levels and stages with an exquisite design that facilitates the player's intuition to find the necessary paths and trails to reach the right place. In addition to these changes, Ubisoft wanted to make a more casual game to attract new players to the franchise. What did Ubisoft do to make this Prince of Persia more casual and accessible to any type of player, regardless of their skill level? Well, what the developers at the French-Canadian studio did was design a more controlled adventure with a lot of assistance for traversal movement while controlling the prince. And the most controversial aspect of this choice, the player never dies. Whether from falling from a considerable height, in combat with an enemy, or from missing a jump and landing in a corrupted area that in theory will consume the life of the prince, he will survive. Controversial at the time? Perhaps. But when I play it, I didn't feel that this choice of not dying in the adventure diminished the challenge or the satisfaction of completing a platforming section. Hey, but be warned, it's not that the player restarts from the exact spot where they failed. No, ladies and gentlemen, Elika saves the prince, but she returns him a considerable distance from where he was standing. The same things happens during battles against enemies. If the prince is attacked and fails to defend himself, Elika comes to the rescue, with the consequence that a portion of the enemy's health bar is restored. Therefore, I can say that even if you don't die in this odyssey, there are consequences for failing in gameplay actions. It's not easy peasy, baby. And who is this girl who saves our skin? Elika, a princess of this kingdom. And it's here that I will give a small synopsis of the narrative of this title, set in this dimension of the Persian Principality. The game starts with the prince or the protagonist wandering through a desert, searching for his donkey named Farah. A curious call, recalling the name of a character in the previous trilogy. Astute? A little Easter egg. He stumbles upon a girl named Elika, the princess of those forbidden lands, with a mystical city ruled by the Tree of Life. What the prince didn't know were the disastrous events that had occurred in that region. Within that mystical tree, the evil god Ahriman was imprisoned by his brother, the god Ormazd, whose destiny led him to rest among the stars of the afterlife. Sadly, in a selfish act, but due to painful circumstances, the king of these lands and Elika's father cut down that mystical tree to revive none other than his daughter. Yes, the very girl that the prince had found. By committing this debated act, the king brought his heir back from the afterlife, but also unleashed a colossal problem. A very dangerous one. Mama! Ahriman, the god of darkness, with his mission to conquer all regions, was now on the loose. Ahriman's power was toxic and tangible. The ethereal threats of the past were long gone. This malevolent power spread throughout the kingdom, flooding it with a dark, vicious, and suffocating substance. It corrupted even the king himself, forcing the prince, along with Elika, to save the kingdom from the corruption and eliminate the ruinous Ahriman. Hey, I can't deny it. After playing for a while, I forgot what the main mission was or why we were collecting seeds of light and freeing sectors of the kingdom from the dark substance that drained life from everything it touched. It's a simplistic story, the typical narrative of saving the world from evil or a hopeless fate. However, the relationship between Elika and her father is something special. She feels indirectly responsible for the negative situation regarding Ahriman and his malevolent presence. Let's not forget that the direct blame lies with the king, Elika's father, who couldn't bear to lose another loved one and succumbed to his grief without considering the common good, as it is expected and the obligation of a leader to set aside any personal feelings and act for the good of others, like a commonwealth benefit. The interaction and motivation of these two characters is the X factor that gives this 2008 Prince of Persia its uniqueness. On one hand, Elika knows that saving the world will cost her her life, and on the other, her father allows Ahriman to dominate his self-being, so he won't feel pain or remorse for his actions. Besides this pair of more complex characters, the prince himself isn't relevant. He's only there as a narrative vehicle so that we, the players, can witness with a front row seat and a VIP view the unfolding of a story punctuated by moral dilemmas, integrity, and the unwavering desire to do what's best for the community and the world around him. Nevertheless, the prince isn't a blank slate, and he tries to establish himself in this world with certain personality traits. He is a wanderer, an aimless scoundrel, taking life lightly and telling terrible jokes that lighten certain tense moments. You know, in a way, I'm jealous of his way of seeing life. It will be easier in this planet Earth. But sometimes his dialogue is very modern and doesn't fit the universe or the time period in which the game is set. It's quite strange to hear the prince talk like a 21st century dude, man. An example of this prince out of place dialogue is the next one. I quote, "I help others. I even help old ladies cross the street." What? Which street? Do cars even exist in this world? Nonsense. The voice actor for the prince is phenomenal. I'm talking about Nolan North, the legend. But the dialogue in the game, mostly from the prince, is outlandish and doesn't fit with the game setting. As I mentioned before, in this 2008 Prince of Persia game, the magical sands from the past trilogy don't exist. They're out of service, man. Stuck in customs, stranded in a cargo container in the middle of the Caribbean Sea, baby. Therefore, magic belongs only to Elika, and her wizardry abilities are essential for the success in this adventure. In total, there are 4 magical spells that Elika can interact with, and these enchanted devices grant her unique abilities that also the prince takes advantage of them, such as running along walls, ignoring gravity and any laws of quantum physics, also flying through the skies like a moth, or simply teleporting from one place to another without losing any part of your body in the process. Absolutely amazing, let me tell you. The prince's movement through the environments is of a quality familiar to those who played the previous trilogy. The gameplay is refined, elegant, and silky smooth, baby. It's somewhat addictive. You want to jump, run along walls, swing, and of course, complete a course perfectly in one go is so satisfying. The gameplay is a hallmark of the saga, and it's a fun game loop. But what caught my attention and piqued my curiosity the most was the inspiration the game's developers drew upon to create the setting and stage theme of the game. The story of the game is inspired by Zoroastrianism, an ancient Iranian religion that teaches the beliefs of the Iranian prophet Zoroaster. The religion venerates a benevolent and wise supreme being called Ahura Mazda and his antithesis, Angra Mainyu. Therefore, the game features 2 cosmic deities, such as the benevolent Ormazd and the malevolent Ahriman. Zoroastrianism shaped the culture and history of Iran. It is a dualistic religion, and its followers currently number between 100,000 and 200,000 members, though this number is steadily declining. The father-daughter relationship between the king and Elika adds depth to the events of the story. On one hand, the king was mistaken in releasing Ahriman from his eternal imprisonment. But I can imagine the pain he felt seeing his daughter die, considering that his beloved wife died in the same way. Wow. This is why he didn't contemplate the consequences of reviving Elika. On the other hand, Elika didn't demand to be brought back from the afterlife. And of course, she's not to blame for what her father caused by making her heart beat again. The young woman is caught in the middle of a dilemma, metaphorically speaking, holding a sword with 2 sharp edges. She's angry with her father for causing such chaos, but at the same time, she can deny the joy of being able to live again and see her beloved progenitor. It's an engaging and thoughtful interpersonal dynamic between two characters that I would have liked to see explored further, maybe with a flashback of Elika's childhood, living with his dad. That will be very cool. Elika's relationship with her father resonates strongly at the end of the game. I won't spoil it for those who want to experience the culmination of this adventure firsthand, an ending that manages to subvert expectations. Hey Ubisoft, we need a sequel, man. We need it. I highly recommend this Prince of Persia from 2008. I had a lot of fun playing and finishing it. It's not a difficult game, but it shouldn't be, as it is a pleasant and an original adventure with a few minor flaws, mostly in the combat. However, the exploration, the parkour, and the freedom it offers the player, along with a story that explores the protagonist's conflicting emotions, keep this game in good shape many years after its release.